It's like a shark, NATO, except with poop.
This is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. Trust me, I'm like a smart person.
I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius.
I had the best words. Tolerized. I know words.
Mike Pounds.
I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation.
But there's no better word than stupid. Anonymous, really anonymous. I'm very highly educated.
One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
I had the best words.
God bless the United States.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation, everybody, welcome to the show. It is Wednesday, it's hump day. We got news, we got fun news, we got ridiculous stuff, and then we're going to go into the disaster that is Palestine and Israel. Oh, shit. Here we go. So I want to start out a little bit later, then we're going to go down the depression, the depression hole. Or just the depression itself, because depressions are kind of holes. Anyway, yeah, we'll have fun for a little bit. Anyway, we've got Liz Cheney. Cancel culture once again comes to the Republican Party. Shocker. Talk about that. We've got Don Jr.'s wife, ex-wife, getting a little bit of secret service from agents, if you know what I mean. We got Matt Gaetz updates on who's going to flip on that. And then we have Republicans going after First Amendment rights, trying to go after fact checkers. Yes, there's a war on facts. And then Andrew Yang gets dogpiled for the situation in Gaza. And I'm going to do some clarity on that one. So... yeah, I'm gonna give you my opinion on what's going on, and honestly, why I don't cover it as much, even though it's incredibly important. All right. Anyway, let's start out. Let's just dive in. Before we do, please like and share the stream. Very helpful if you do so. Super chats always, of course, help us as well. Those of you on Facebook, Twitch. And YouTube, please share if you can, give likes and all that wonderful stuff to show your support. That said, diving in, let's go to Liz Cheney. The Cheneys. Whoops. Did I seriously not do that? Oh, whoops. Oh no, I don't have my bottom bars. I mean, I've got this one. Whoops. Okay, anyway, we can do the show without him. Except for this one. This one's funny. All right. It appears that Representative Liz Cheney has been canceled by the Republican Party. What was it because of her push to get America into the incredibly disastrous and expensive Iraq war started by George W. Bush? Was it the fact that she was complicit in the rhetoric of widespread voter fraud? all the way back during the Obama administration, not pushing back on her daddy's insistence that there is widespread voter fraud. Oh my God. The fact that she believed Obama was sympathetic to jihadists or any of that. No, of course not. No. Liz Cheney has been canceled for not being loyal enough to former President Donald Trump. Because we knew that. On Tuesday night, Cheney once again went after fellow Republicans for continuing to support Trump and to spread the big lie about the election, so-called mad widespread voter fraud they can't seem to find. But they say it's there. They're saying, oh, it's there. We found it. Oh, okay, where's your evidence? We don't have any, but we know it's there. Look at these sketchy YouTube videos. The evidence. Anyway, here's some of what Liz Cheney said that, of course, got her canceled. Take a look.
A former president who provoked a violent attack on this Capitol in an effort to steal the election has resumed his aggressive effort to convince Americans that the election was stolen from him. He risks inciting further violence. Millions of Americans have been misled by the former president. They have heard only his words, but not the truth, as he continues to undermine our democratic process, sowing seeds of doubt about whether democracy really works at all. Remaining silent and ignoring the lie emboldens the liar. I will not participate in that. I will not sit back and watch in silence while others lead our party down a path that abandons the rule of law and joins the former president's crusade to undermine our democracy.
All right, so that didn't go over well with the rest of the party, obviously. So earlier this morning, the House Republicans ousted Cheney as conference chair in a voice vote. Voice vote, meaning that nobody wanted to be or bothered to be on the record. Either that or it was obviously overwhelmingly unanimous, so overwhelmingly unanimous that it wasn't even a question of how many people would actually vote against that. Those are the two different ways that you can take this voice vote. Either way, it shows that the Republican Party is essentially a bunch of sycophants who aren't even brave enough to stand up to the former president who incited insurrection. They're there to kiss Donald Trump's ass. Now, if you're going to be a pathetic little bootlicker, you would think that you would be more open about it, right? In the case that, they were doing a voice vote because they didn't want to go on the record, or, again, just the fact that they're basically a cult. Be open about being a cult. Why do it in a secret ballot? Why do it on a voice vote that is hidden from the public? We would like to know who would decide to put, Donald Trump over everything else. Now, after all, it seems like in today's GOP, all you have to do to get in positions of power is to deep throat Donald Trump's boot. That said, there's no good people in this story. They're all terrible people, Liz Cheney included. Okay. Now the GOP itself is terrible. A lot of their voter base is largely terrible and or heavily propagandized to be terrible. They live in a completely different reality than the rest of us. And Liz Cheney, again, helped build that. She built that. We shouldn't be giving her credit for accepting objective reality. That's how low, understand, that's how low the bar is for the Republican Party right now. And you got Democrats like, oh my God, Liz Cheney standing up, arbiter of truth and justice, and the American way. She's one of us now. Welcome to the resistance, Liz Cheney. No. But interestingly enough, that little acceptance of this reality was more than enough to get her booted from party positions. Even though on policy, she's actually one of the most conservative Republicans in the House. It's not about policy, though. The GOP has no policy anymore. The GOP is a cult. That's what the Republican Party is. And if you openly challenge the cult leader, you're done. You're done. So now before the vote, this was during a closed-door meeting, according to a source familiar with the remarks, quote, "We cannot let the former president drag us backward and make us complicit in his efforts to unravel democracy. Down that path lies our destruction and potentially the destruction of our country. If you want leaders who will enable the spread of his destructive lies, then I'm not your person. You have plenty of others to choose from. That will be their legacy." Well, she's absolutely right about that. There's no shortage of Trump sycophants. People who probably personally detest Donald Trump, but because of the power, because of the fact that over 60% of the base believes in Donald Trump's the big lie, and they will, not vote for you. They'll primary you if you don't come out and give credence to the bullshit. These people are too afraid to actually do the right thing, even if they personally detest Donald Trump. Sad baby. Now, one of the people that they found to replace Liz Cheney is actually Representative Elise Stefanik. So now, interestingly enough, she has not only earned the endorsement of Donald Trump, but also House Leader Kevin McCarthy and Whip Steve Scalise. And the interesting part about that is that Stefanik is actually less conservative on issues when it comes to than Cheney. The difference is loyalty to Donald Trump. She's just, willing to lie about the things that Donald Trump wants her to lie about, as opposed to the standard things that conservatives tend to lie about, like, trickle down. Meaning that it's never, again, for them been about policy whatsoever. So now, after her cancellation, this is what she told reporters during an interview, specifically on Donald Trump. "I will do everything I can to ensure that the former president never again gets anywhere near the Oval Office." Now, there's, of course, reasons for this. And again, it comes down, I think, to a little bit of selfishness. But she continues by saying, "We have seen the danger that he continues to provoke with his language. We have seen his lack of commitment and dedication to the Constitution. And I think it's very important that we make sure whomever we elect is somebody who will be faithful to the Constitution. Perhaps Liz Cheney." I'm not saying it's not outside the realm of possibility. Okay. Could she run in 2024? Look, whenever something like this happens, there's always a question of, are you doing this for your own political, aspirations? And when it comes to politicians, the answer is almost always yes. Yes, it is. Usually. So there you go. Now, that said, she is right about Trump, but at the same time, her cancellation is one of her own making. Again, what she has traditionally supported in the past is what built Donald Trump to begin with. So, and I say that because she had supported torture. She had supported the wars that were based on lies. She had supported allegations of voter fraud. In fact, during the Bush administration, the White House, according to reporter Jonathan Larson, I want to give him credit here for this great reporting. Back during the Bush administration, the White House had been pushing federal prosecutors to gin up voter fraud cases in order to justify voter suppression. It's the same old song for Republicans. They don't want black people voting, so they invent fraud. And so they then take the fraud that they invented, even without any evidence, and say, "Oh, well, look at all the fraud that's happening. We better do voter ID. We better do voter suppression measures to stop the rampant fraud that we can't prove." It's been the same old story since at least the 1980s, when at least they came out and admitted it and said, "Yeah, we don't want more people voting because when more people vote, we lose." Godfather of the conservative movement. I don't know how many times I have to show that video of the Goo syndrome. You should look it up, since I don't have it available right now. But it's a Republican basically admitting, "Yeah, we don't want more people to vote, so we're going to try to shut it down." That's it. That's the whole thing. And she said nothing about it. And in fact, it got even worse. During the Bush administration, prosecutors who refused to gin up voter fraud lies, the precursor to the big lie, were actually fired by the Bush administration, i.e., canceled. They were canceled because they wouldn't go along with that big lie. When Democrats investigated to find out the reason for the prosecutor purge, Cheney's father, Dick Cheney, architect of, again, the disastrous war in Iraq, in the Middle East, called it a witch hunt. Paul Weyrich, yes. He is the one, the Goo syndrome guy, by the way. And so these, when this was happening, when her daddy was going around purging prosecutors and then saying, oh, witch hunt, she was quiet. She stayed absolutely silent. So she enabled that big lie that Donald Trump then co-opted to use for himself as an excuse to why he lost an election after a disastrous COVID-19 pandemic. So that's what's going on. So I don't think she's a good standard bearer at all for the truth, especially for standing up to this one thing. What she's doing, in my view, is setting up her own political ascendancy. You know, maybe a primary challenge or not a primary challenge, but a challenge for the Republican nomination, almost a Democratic nomination, which wouldn't surprise me either with how this is going. Weird Freudian slip there. But no, I think that what she's doing is trying to set up her own ascendancy, as well as trying to save her own party from irrelevance. She knows that Donald Trump was going to take the party down with him. Hell, Lindsey Graham knew before he became a Trump sycophant. He said that, you know, if we nominate Donald Trump, we're going to go down with him. And guess what? The party would deserve it. True. And now, again, Lindsey Graham is one of the biggest ass suckers on Donald Trump's behind that you can find. And so, and here's the thing, right? Trump ripped the mask off the party and showed America what the GOP actually is and what they believe. And guess what? The majority did not like what they saw. They didn't. And what Cheney wants to do is not to change anything. She wants to put the mask back on. And she wants conservatives to stop openly saying the things that they actually believe so loud. They want to get back to the coded language. They want to get back to, oh, no, we don't say that out loud. No. We actually enact policies that make black people's lives harder and make it so it's harder for them to vote. But we're not going to be like, N-word this, N-word that, which is what the Republican Party wants to do. And so understand that this is what this is about, okay? Trying to make sure that she still has a party to be into, because overall, when it comes to policy positions, the Republican Party serves the rich. It serves the rich. It serves their donors. It serves them incredibly well. And they want to keep it that way. By the way, the Republican Party right now is putting out the message that they're, and this is what's disturbing, that they could not really, they can't lose. Well, you think, well, that's insane. They lost presidency, they lost the House, and they barely lost the Senate. What do you mean, the message of they can't lose? Well, their message is, we can't lose because if we do, it's fraud. It's illegitimate. Those people are not Americans. Those people aren't real voters. They're dead voters. We actually won. We're the real winners. So even if we lose, we still win because everything is complete and utter fraudulent. That is their message. And by the way, this is the same thing that Republicans have believed since at least 2008, when President Obama won his first term. The result of that was the birther movement. That birther movement, oh, President Obama is a secret Kenyan Muslim jihadist communist atheist, illegitimate president. Yes. And you know what's funny? Not ironically, Donald Trump was one of the first adopters of birtherism, along with this Orly Tates person. So, and speaking of Trump, by the way, Trump also released a statement following Liz Cheney's ouster. Quote, Liz Cheney is a bitter, horrible human being. I watched her yesterday and realized how bad she is for the Republican Party. She's a warmonger whose family stupidly pushed us into the never-ending Middle East disaster, draining our wealth and depleting our great military. The worst decision in our country's history. I look forward to soon watching her as a paid contributor on CNN or MSDNC. Yes. Here's what's funny. Cheney is bitter and horrible. He's right about that. And guess what? He is too. He's also incredibly bitter about just about everything. In fact, his entire thing about, I won the election fraud, Democrats stole it. That's all bitter. That's all super bitter. So I guess it takes one to know one. That said, Donald Trump, no, he was for the Iraq war before he was against it. Let's just say that. And I don't think he arrived there, because of anything that was good. Okay. It's one of those things where it's, I don't know, A/B test the audience. Oh, everybody hates the Iraq war. Oh, I hate the Iraq war too. Instead of being against it when it was clear that what we were doing were killing civilians and doing ridiculous regime change wars. That said, I really hope the libs don't rehabilitate her or don't try. Oh, God, no. They already rehabilitated or tried to rehabilitate George W. Bush, this war criminal. Please, don't. Stop. Just let her be canceled by everybody. Just because she deserves it. Let her be canceled by Republicans. Let her be canceled by Democrats. Just let her be canceled. Please, let's not rehab war criminals. And speaking of war criminals, Donald Trump's done some pretty war criminal shit too. Let's not forget about killing Soleimani, dropping the Moab. Yeah. So let's just, cancel them both and move on. All right. Okay. Whew. Next story. We'll just go without the button. A new book written by Pulitzer Prize-winning Washington Post reporter Carol Leonnig claims that there's some concerns within the Secret Service of Trump family members getting a little too close to agents. And when I say get a little too close, I mean it. Now, The Guardian has obtained a new copy of the book, and it reports that Leonnig detailed how two members of the Trump family, starting with Vanessa Trump, the ex-wife of Donald Trump Jr., had started dating an agent who had been assigned to guard her family soon after she filed for divorce with the eldest Trump son. Now, although Secret Service agents are forbidden from dating the people that they're guarding, the agency raised no red flags about Vanessa Trump's relationship with the agent because he was no longer being assigned to protect her after her divorce. Okay. Oh, all right. But there was another instance of some shady stuff happening. And that has to do with another Trump family member, Tiffany. Good old Tiffany. Leonnig reports that there were suspicions within the agency about Tiffany Trump potentially forming her own relationship with a different agent. Specifically, Leonnig claims that Tiffany Trump broke up with her boyfriend at the time, then began spending an unusual amount of time alone with a Secret Service agent on her detail, which caused leaders within the agency to become concerned at how close Tiffany appeared to be getting to the tall, dark, and handsome agent. Ooh, steamy, salacious. Look, normally I don't care about this stuff. Okay, Date who you're going to date. But, this is, again, this is a story that's a little bit salacious. And that's fine. But here's the thing. There are rules for a reason. Okay? And generally one of the rules, and it makes sense, you don't date the people that you're getting paid to protect. Is that like some sort of unwritten rule that you can't F your bodyguard? Maybe I'm imagining things. Maybe, yes, and I did watch The Bodyguard, by the way. I'm, again, dating myself here. It just feels like it's bad work ethics, right? It's bad enough that we have to pay taxpayer money to protect the Trump family to begin with. But in this case, we're essentially paying agents to fuck the Trump kids. Like they're getting secretly serviced on our dime. Okay. I'm not a fan of that. Okay. So what I would do is, well, obviously the person on Tiffany Trump's detail should be removed, reassigned, and then then they can do whatever they want. Then it's not in our interest anymore because she's not getting paid to service her. Okay. So what's even more salacious though is that you get back to Vanessa, right? So now Vanessa, with her Secret Service agent, well, they got together right after her and Don Jr. got a divorce. And so it kind of makes you wonder, was there something going on? It's a little odd. There's timing here, very strange. And it does matter because we do pay for that protection. That's our money. And as a taxpayer, I am not happy about the amount of cash we have already had to drop on the protection for the Trumps. On this supposedly rich family. Like, long after they left the White House, by the way, it turns out, when you look into it, we've spent a ton of money on Secret Service protection for the Trump kids, even when there were not even, even after Donald Trump was not in the White House. In fact, according to reports, Trump's adult children cost us $140,000 in Secret Service security in the month after Trump left the White House in January. Now, ordinarily, once the president leaves the White House, they lose their security detail, right? But in the case of Trump and the 4 siblings and 2 of their spouses, well, the former president had issued a directive to extend post-presidency protections by 6 months. So the whole family, the Trump kids and their spouses, they get Secret Service protection on our dime for an additional 6 months. $140,000 was spent in 1 month. That's $840,000 if it's the same for the next 6 months, just on Secret Service members that are allegedly porking Tiffany and Vanessa. And by the way, I mean this in both a literal and figurative definition of pork. Okay? What an absolute waste. Do you know how much we could, direct that money to like house people and feed people, Americans in poverty, with $840,000? It's a decent amount of money. But no, Snowflake's got to have the protection. And who knows what else. And hopefully the protection was using the protection. Whew. Oh, I'm sorry. It's hard not to laugh, even though it's such a waste. Seems like there was a song in a movie about this very concept. True. Very, very true. Oh, God. So many double entendres, the whole segment. Good. Mission accomplished. The puns. They can't ride on my dime. Okay. Anyway, get it together. Pervy chat. Get out the bonk stick.
masturbate all day long.
Okay, anyway, I'll stop.
I like my meat tight. Tighten up my meat.
Okay, anyway. Representative Matt Gaetz is facing a Justice Department investigation into accusations that he had paid women for sex and separately slept with a minor, transporting her across the state line. So, some serious allegations. Okay. Now, his wingman, Joel Greenberg, had reportedly also written a confession letter detailing their many alleged sex crimes. And that's not all. Apparently, there are new developments that are making Matt Gaetz' day even worse. CNN is reporting that federal investigators are seeking the cooperation of a former Capitol Hill intern who also was a former girlfriend. Oh, look at that. Now, again, this is on top of the cooperation they could secure from Mr. Greenberg. And so both of these together. Now, Greenberg is negotiating a plea deal over 33 different charges: sex trafficking of a minor, bribery, stalking, defrauding the Paycheck Protection Program, and is facing a deadline this week to cut a plea deal with prosecutors. Again, those are just some of the alleged crimes. Now, investigators are reportedly interested in the assistance of the former girlfriend, who was reportedly on the 2018 Bahamas trip with Gaetz that has come under scrutiny for potentially violating the Mann Act, which makes it a felony to transport people across state lines to engage in prostitution. So now, look, let's be clear. I support prostitution. I think that we should legalize that. Nonetheless, this has to do with a minor. And so, no bueno, not good. The girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, is also believed to have had knowledge of drug use and the arrangements with women, sources tell CNN. Now, that Bahamas trip has again become a focus for investigators who are scrutinizing whether women were paid to travel for sex with Gaetz and others, and whether the trip was part of an effort to illegally influence Gaetz in the area of medical marijuana. Now, that's interesting. Now, let's be clear. I'm in favor of full marijuana legalization, cannabis legalization, regulation, taxation. Policy-wise, Gaetz and I would actually be sort of on the same side. I'm not saying he's for legalization, but at least when it comes to medical cannabis, okay, and loosening prohibitions for the use of medical cannabis. Now, Gaetz apparently has a long history of advocating for medical marijuana and has introduced several pieces of legislation seeking to loosen laws regulating the drug, both as a state representative in Florida and as a member of Congress. Again, I don't think it's a bad position. I agree with that position. But, and here comes the but, there's always a but, if you're bribed to hold that position by companies, by corporations, business interests, then that's not good. That's bad. Even if I agree, as I said, I agree with loosening the laws on medical marijuana and also, again, lifting the federal prohibition and doing full legalization, regulation, and taxation of cannabis. That is my stated position. And I'm in favor of it because it's the right thing to do. We lock up way too many people for a plant that can actually be incredibly beneficial. There's medical value. Doesn't really harm anybody. I know personally a lot of people who smoke it, even though, this is an anecdote, for both medical and recreational reasons. And there are a lot of credible peer-reviewed studies that also show that it's not deserving of being a Schedule 1 drug. In fact, in the period between 1990 and 2014, there was actually a total of 60 different peer-reviewed studies on medical cannabis, 68% of which ended up being pro-usage, 8% were against usage, 23% were neither pro or con, and it's been shown as especially effective in a lot of these studies in treating symptoms of MS. Now, so again, giving some scientific backing on why marijuana prohibition, cannabis prohibition makes absolutely no sense. Now, here's the thing. If Gaetz is only in favor of it because of, being paid off, by big corporate growers, well, then that's not good. Even if we're at the same position, it's not because he's doing it because it's the right thing to do. It's kind of the same issue like with John Boehner. John Boehner, who handed out tobacco checks, used to, on the House floor, back when he was Speaker of the House. Now he's working on behalf of cannabis growers. I mean, there's money involved here. And so it should be noted. Okay. That said, back to Gaetz. That former girlfriend also happened to be involved in some financial transactions the FBI had obtained, and investigators are pursuing what knowledge Gaetz had about the payment and activities. Sources say she now works in the Florida state government, according to state records. And last month, Politico reported the ex-girlfriend was a woman, the woman whose nude video Gaetz allegedly showed to other members of Congress. So you would assume that she might have a vested interest in testifying against him for that little stunt. In 2017, also according to CNN, she had been interning for a Republican lawmaker when she was supposedly fired for being a Democrat. At that point, Gaetz had asked Florida Democratic Representative Darren Soto to hire as an unpaid intern. I guess one of the perks, he would say, of being Matt Gaetz' girlfriend, getting her into a job. The cooperation of Greenberg and the former girlfriend could be among the final steps in the probe of Gaetz, which was started by Gaetz apparently probing too many people. Yes, there's that. Investigators view both as crucial in understanding the relevance of hundreds of transactions they obtained records of, including those involving payments for sex. Sources familiar with the investigation tell CNN. The ex-girlfriend could also be questioned by investigators about the second woman, as they try to determine whether Gaetz may have slept with that woman when she was, woman now, girl then, child then, 17 years old. So let's be very clear about that. Now, Greenberg's lawyer said in a court hearing last month that Greenberg intended to plea, which is expected to include a cooperation agreement with the government. The deadline set by the judge to do that is approaching at the end of the week, though an agreement has yet to be finalized. But if both of those agreements happen, the cooperation with Greenberg and the cooperation with the girlfriend, and, based on what they know, not looking good for Gaetz. Gaetzgate gets worse. And yet, by the way, Matt Gaetz is still on committees. He's still traveling the country. Still got a job. While Liz Cheney, and I ain't no fan of Cheney. Liz Cheney just got kicked from her committee assignments. And I wonder why. That's real weird. Very strange. Oh, right. It's because the Republican Party is the party of Trump. Matt Gaetz, incredibly pro-Trump. Liz Cheney, not so much. The Trump cult protects its own. And Republicans, interestingly enough, you do have Republicans out there that are kind of defending Matt Gaetz a little bit, despite the fact that they don't actually like him, but he's pro-Trump. And so he's on committees. He's out there touring with Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, even while being investigated for being basically a creepy sex pest, having sex with a 17-year-old girl, as well as many other things. And so they defend that because that's the modern Republican Party. That's who they are. And you know what? When they show you who they are, you should believe them. All right. They're not going to kick him out unless there's an actual criminal guilty plea and all that stuff. So, all right, I'm going to take a real quick break. We're going to come back. We got more stories here. Stay right here. We'll be back around the nation.
Don't you want to please me?
I will eat your ass.
Amazing.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here, Waldorf Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. So I just had to go and fix my graphics, my bars. We're gonna have some bars, everybody, for the remaining stories. So fun times. Before I do that, before we get back into the rest of the show, I do want to thank Northern Ice Dragon for the 100 biddies. I also want to thank Tempa Dan for giving out 2 Tier 1 community subs. Northern Ice Dragon, again, for the another 100 bits. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Granny Dragon, thank you for subscribing for 7 months at Tier 1. Thank you, all of you on Twitch. Let's go over here to YouTube, which I hopefully will see. Apparently, no Super Chats have shown up. I don't know if it's because I haven't had Super Chats or because YouTube is being stupid about it. So let's go and check that here. Yes, here we go. Gabby Mathis says, let's see. We got cinema and recount, but legalized weed in Arizona. Interesting how that works. Interesting. Let's see. Elwell says, I don't know if this was from today or not, but intellectual laziness to people put no effort in fact checking multiple sources. I think that was from yesterday, but yeah, YouTube's doing YouTube thing. Always. All right. Thank you, by the way, for the super chats. Thank you as well to those of you on Twitch and on Facebook for watching all that wonderful stuff. Yes, we're on Twitch. You're not familiar with Twitch? Oh, man. Check it out. A lot of great streamers on there doing political things. Very based. All right. Ha-ha. Michigan Republican has declared war on facts and the people who dare to spread them. Now, the Detroit News is reporting that Michigan Representative Matt Maddock filed a new bill called the, quote, Fact Checker Registration Act, which would apparently force fact checkers to register with the state, i.e. big government, and would subject them to $1,000 daily fines if they're found to have made mistakes. Now, remember, this is for registration for fact checkers, but when it comes to gun registration, that's against your Second Amendment rights. Wow. Okay, then. Now, the Detroit News reports that the bill requires qualifying fact checkers to file proof of a $1 million fidelity bond with the Secretary of State's office, which will be tasked with developing the form and manner of registration and filing, reports the Detroit News. An affected person could bring a civil action in any county district court to claim the bond for any wrongful conduct that is a violation of the laws of the state. If a judge finds that the affected person suffered demonstrable harm from something written by a fact checker, the fact checker could be hit with fines of $1,000 a day until they correct the record. Snowflake, baby. That's what this is. And you can chalk that up to a fact check, by the way. Fact check, this guy's a snowflake. Baby, sad. I mean, whatever happened to the free marketplace of ideas? And to challenging utter falsehoods. I mean, you're going to tell me that you want to find fact checkers for calling out ridiculous lies spread more often than not by conservatives like yourself. There's no way that's not going to backfire in your face. Imagine that. Okay, Fox News. Fox News lies all the time. Fact checkers, right? So now conservatives will point out the one or two times that New York Times will report something wrong. And then a couple of days later, they'll be like, oh, sorry, we've either printed a retraction or we have taken this down. We have fixed this, okay? When does Fox News ever apologize for lying? Almost never, unless they're getting sued by Dominion. And this is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And here's the thing, though. This won't hurt conservatives because in order to prove demonstrable harm, well, you got to go to court. You got to hire lawyers. You got to, go and spend all this money on fees and that's not something people that are harmed by conservative misinformation are usually able to do. Okay, and so what it would do though is it sure would stop would-be fact checkers who don't have the resources from being able to fact check obvious and call out obvious lies. It would absolutely chill any effort to correct the record. Which is the point. Republicans don't want to be fact-checked on their lies. They know the facts, and the facts are generally not on their side. And by the way, how would you go, around enforcing that anyway? What are you going to target media outlets that report on fact checks or do fact checking of their own? Is that what you're going to do? Will shows like mine have to register with big government? Why are you growing big government, Mr. Maddock? Getting into people's lives with your overreach, your anti-First Amendment bullshit? No, this is fascism. Remember, fascism isn't just goose-stepping authoritarians running concentration camps. It begins with outlawing actual real information, burning books, punishing people who fact-check politicians, and political correctness, which, despite the twisting of the meaning by a lot of conservatives, actually refers to hiding truths that make politicians look bad. Oh, this bit of information about homelessness and unemployment makes me look bad. Hide it. Why don't we tell anybody who's homeless, or why don't we tell other people that anybody's homeless is homeless by choice? That way, it makes them look bad, not us, for pushing policies that make people homeless. Not because, paying jobs are terrible and the cost of living is too high. No. We just want to blame them so that we can not get blamed for it. And you know what? That's politically correct. Not factually correct, politically correct. And what conservatives, by the way, also mean is that anybody who disagrees with me is being politically correct. Cancel culture. There's also an alarming number of conservatives who just want to simply say the N-word without any consequences. Honestly. And before they talked about, like I said, cancel culture, this is what they went to, PC culture. The PC police have stopped me from saying what I want to say. Actually, no, nobody stopped you from saying it. It's just now, if you want to say those things, you want to say hateful things, it comes with consequences. But this story, wanting to drag people who do fact checks for a living against the powerful through ridiculous litigation that they would likely win anyway, is indicative as to how conservatives don't actually believe in free speech or a free press or the First Amendment. They don't think, it applies to anybody else but them. And it really means that, what they want to do is they think that they should be able to go and call someone the N-word on Twitter, a private platform, and not get booted off. That's what they think free speech is. That's really it. That said, this is not constitutional. Democratic Michigan State Senator Jeremy Moss predicted that Maddox's anti-fact-checking bill would get shot down by courts, even if it managed to pass. He said, quote, "This is an affront to the First Amendment." True. 100%. Why you got to be against the Constitution, Mr. Maddox? Don't you believe in free speech? Obviously not, because you're supporting this. This is how you kill freedom of the press without doing it overtly? Yeah. All right. Here we go. Let the charges of anti-Semitism flow, because we know it will. New York City mayor candidate Andrew Yang found himself in the middle of a progressive firestorm after he voiced support for the Israeli airstrikes in Gaza. Now, Israel's military had begun conducting airstrikes on Monday after Hamas had fired rockets into Jerusalem, killing at least 2 people. Now, Hamas fired those rockets in retaliation after Israeli security forces had cracked down. We've seen the videos, of course, of heavily armed police from Israel inside Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest site. And so what you constantly have is retaliation for this, retaliation for that, retaliation for this, retaliation for that. And it's a never-ending cycle. Okay. Now, the East Jerusalem neighborhood of Sheikh Jarrah, where Israel's right-wing government is also seeking to forcibly evict Palestinians to make way for Jewish settlers as part of land seizures that have been considered illegal by the United Nations. And so this is what we have. You have people dying. You have land getting seized. You have people being denied civil human rights, mostly Palestinian, by the way. And so this is just the latest example of this never-ending horrible cycle. And so far, you had 30 people, at least 30 people that have been killed. The majority of them have been Palestinian. There's Israeli victims as well, 2 of them so far. A 50-year-old Israeli woman and an 80-year-old woman, as well as her Indian caretaker, have been killed as well. On the Palestinian side, there's been reports of at least 9 children that have been killed in these strikes. And so we have a situation where there's no winning here. There's no winning. So on one side, you've got the well-funded right-wing military of Israel, funded partly by, you guessed it, the United States, with all the advantages that brings. And then, of course, on the other side, you've got some jihadis with rocket launchers, douchebags. And so there's not, in my opinion, not a lot of good guys. You have a lot of good guys on either side. And again, on the one side, you've got Hamas, it's a terrible terrorist organization. And then you've got Israel on the other side, that's an apartheid state run by a corrupt right-winger who regularly violates international law and does illegal settlements on Palestinian land. Also, yes, ethnic cleansing that's going on as well. So, and in the middle of those two, you have innocent people that are being killed. Innocent civilians that are dying. And it continues to be fueled, or it continues to fuel the violence on both sides. And I'm not saying that it's a both sides issue. I want to avoid doing that because I don't think it's a both sides issue because both sides are not equal in this. And this is where it gets to where, the media calls, the Palestinians are clashing with the Israelis. No, there's a huge power imbalance going on here between, again, the mostly unarmed civilians of Palestine, minus the people with, rockets and stuff, versus an incredibly powerful modern military force bankrupt by the most powerful countries in the world. And so there is a massive, massive imbalance that's going on here. And so that said, Andrew Yang stepped in it. Okay. And so here's what he tweeted. I'm standing with the people of Israel who are coming under bombardment attacks and condemn the Hamas terrorists. The people of NYC will always stand with our brothers and sisters in Israel who face down terrorism and persevere. That statement's pretty tone deaf. And after a lot of criticism, as well as praise from people like Stephen Miller and Ted Cruz, he backtracked. He said that his volunteers, quote, felt that my tweet was overly simplistic in my treatment of a conflict that has a long and complex history full of tragedies, and they felt it failed to acknowledge the pain and suffering on both sides. They were, of course, correct. I mourn for every Palestinian life taken before its time, as I do for every Israeli. Support of a people does not make one blind to the pain and suffering of others. Now, of course, the damage is already done. he already stuck his foot into his mouth once again. In fact, as a result, a Muslim community in Queens disinvited Yang from a Ramadan event. And of course, you had AOC going after him on Twitter, as well as other politicians. Here's what she said: utterly shameful for Yang to try to show up to an Eid event after sending out a chest-thumping statement in support for a strike that killed 9 children. But then try to do that in Astoria during Ramadan. They will let you know. And guess what? They let him know.
So now, what do you have to say about your tweet directly to New Yorkers right now?
It's heartbreaking. All of this is happening. It's heartbreaking, right? It is. You know, people are dying. Civilians are dying. Do you condemn Israel for that? Do you condemn Israel for their unjust acts against the innocent Palestinians? Sir, I'm talking to him.
We got the publicist over here. We got the guy over here.
We gotta go.
Don't say anything that's gonna fuck up your campaign.
Please don't
And
touch
that's
me.
why you don't have my vote, and I guarantee you, you don't have the vote of a lot of New Yorkers.
Sir.
Based. That was great. I love it. So she's right. Now here's the thing. What's going on is kind of complicated. It's incredibly messy. It's been going on for a very long time. And again, the whole point is innocent people are dying. The Israeli military is absolutely doing war crimes. They're doing ethnic cleansing. They're doing it, by the way, with American tax money. Palestinians are living in an open-air prison right now. And as a result of these horrible conditions and the lack of human rights, yes, there are people that turn to Hamas. Hamas then will go and do terror attacks. And then they say, oh, we want to wipe Israel off the map, which, again, saying shit like that doesn't actually help your cause, doesn't help for peace. But at the same time, Israel and the United States are preventing a peaceful option from actually happening. And so right now, and this is why it's frustrating to do these stories, nobody seems to want to get out of this perpetual cycle of violence. They're stuck. We're stuck. We're stuck in it. How long have we been talking about Israeli and Palestinian violence? My entire life, we have been talking about this, and nobody wants to do the things that will actually work, to get actual peace in the region. Okay, and that's the sad part. I do think that Israelis, the citizens, deserve safety and security. Palestinians also deserve human rights and safety and security and the ability to flourish. None of that should be mutually exclusive. And I don't see anybody really talking about that. I mean, you do got some politicians, Ilhan Omar, Bernie Sanders, AOC, a few others. That's about it. But until that happens, until Palestinians actually get human rights and a place of their own, and the ability to live good lives, and have Israel stop stealing their land and oppressing the population, Hamas is always going to have an excuse to do violence and get new recruits, and then Israel's always going to have an excuse to go and launch airstrikes, and the cycle of death continues over and over and over again. That's what sucks about this. It's never going to end. On the current trajectory, it's never going to end. It's got to stop. And I don't know, where you start on that. But maybe you ought to try, I don't know, treating Palestinians as human beings and letting them be equal in your society. It's a starting point, at least. We got to do something, because this is horrible. Okay. Anyway. Well, yeah, we shouldn't be funding Israeli weapons. I think they can afford it by now. They're an incredibly powerful very wealthy nation. They can afford to be without American subsidies, our weapons. Okay. But of course, the only reason that they have our weapons is not necessarily because they need them. It's because the United States likes to sell weapons to everybody. It's true. It's true. They love to sell weapons. So it's partly about money. And of course, Israel's got the weapons and a right-wing government that loves war, that stays in power because of constant conflict. Then yeah, you're going to have them use these weapons against these Palestinians. Further, of course, cementing the cycle of hatred and greed and all of this bullshit. And that's why I don't like talking about this, is because there's no end in sight. And yes, as some of you point out, some evangelicals believe that Israel's important for the end times prophecies. And by the way, maybe it's too far, but it kind of feels like they're an ethno-state, a Jewish ethno-state at this point. And I don't know, that strikes me as not a good thing. So I don't know. I just, this shit's gotta end. Frustrating. All right. Anyway, that's all I got for y'all. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Helps us out greatly to continue, doing the show. Checked peckers are never wrong. I'm gonna go fact check that. All right. Let's see. Yep, that's it. U.S. does pay for Iron Dome. It's true. It's true. All right. We'll see you all tomorrow. Try to have a good one. Love you all, and we'll see you tomorrow on the Nation.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
There's insanity in the control room.
Who's got a hammer?
Mike Pence.
Dumps. Big, massive dumps.
I like my meat tight. I like my meat tight.
Please clap. They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.